Hey,
Mhm.
it's
Happy
another
Monday.
Monday, Motivational Monday, Mindset Monday, and the Monday Rundown.
And
Woo!
obviously a very special September 11th. So to anyone who is obviously, gone through anything having involving that, we send our thoughts and prayers with you and your family.
Now I feel like I need to do a redo
Why?
because what's crazy is that like it didn't even occur to me.
Oh, and in some instances, I don't know how many people actually. It's still a big talking point, but I'm sure today at some point it's probably on in the news and there. I
Oh
don't
no.
know. Do they still go down there?
Well, I haven't gone to the site myself. If this is the first time you're joining us, by the
I didn't know
way, and I
that.
are located in New York. Welcome to Say That channel. In our Monday rundowns, we get to talk about all things. Our Wednesday shows, we talk about business related matters. Um, but that being said, because we're both in New York, I haven't been to the site yet. So this is something on my list of things to do. I really do want to go to the
Oh,
site.
okay. Well, I
Yeah.
could tell you, I'm assuming COVID has made a lot of things different when it comes to things like that. I know that made even going to visit sites and things like that not even top of mind for a lot of people.
Right.
But again, we don't. I don't. We would just want to say to anybody who that may be something that is still a part of your life, because obviously it is something that affected many. We just want to let you know we're praying. We keep our prayers for you guys as well.
Mhm.
But
Never forget, which is why I feel a little bit bad because I'm like, "Oh,
oh
man."
no, no, no.
That's
It's
like the
I don't
thing.
think it's one of those things. You should feel bad,
Well,
even
thanks.
though you probably do. So that's not going to help. So I hear you. I
Yes.
hear you.
'Cause it's not that it's not a big deal for me. Actually, it's, like, a really big deal for me. So, not that I had anyone, necessarily pass away from the incident, but that incident left a huge mark on my memory and, like, my growth as a person. So, um,
Oh,
yeah.
so then think about what it means that it didn't even come up for you anymore. So you don't need to maybe use that as a focal point again, because it's a tragedy. It wasn't something. I don't think anyone's sitting here going, "Let's have another one of those."
No, 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 no. I
Yeah,
mean, it changed a lot of things, right? It changed how we
exactly.
even enter airports, and
Travel.
we love to travel.
It
Yeah,
affected the industry we've most, played a role in our thing in our journey.
yeah.
All right. So let's dive into today's, like Janelle said, guys, if it is your first time, what we typically do is we have a conversation point or talking point that comes from you, the audience, and we dice it up and discuss it. And what we've been doing in this brand new season, especially with Monday Rundowns, is we add in the thoughts of other entrepreneurs, thought leaders, CEOs, doctors. I mean, we've had a variety of people that we've critiqued their videos on the show. And today is definitely going to be a good one. So let's jump into today's topic, and then we can see who we have today. Today's topic is.
How to have difficult conversations. That was the question that we got. How do you
It's so
have difficult
and so funny.
conversations?
Don't you think the one we had just now was like a
Yeah.
example? Exhibit A.
Fair enough. Yes, and so it's so funny to answer that question. I actually feel like I'm still learning. So my immediate response was, well, let's hear from somebody who I would say is like a little bit more experienced in this area to share their wisdom. I've certainly had my fair share of uncomfortable conversations, but there's a difference between doing something and then doing it to a
Doing
point
it
where
well.
you can share with someone or teach someone how to do it as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, yeah.
Right? So
That's actually a
anyway,
really that's a great point.
yeah. So that's why I felt like I don't really have much to say. Let's hear from the experts.
Yeah, yeah. So it's just an assignment, and then we'll jump back in.
All right. For those of you who don't know who Simon Sinek is, he's most famous for his Start With Why book. Also, it's a TED Talk, one of the
Yeah.
most viewed TED Talks out there. And he is a huge thought leader. He is a committed optimist and has a lot to say about this particular topic. So we're going to turn it over to Simon.
I get fairly often, which is how to have uncomfortable conversations. As you know, I talk about the importance of human skills. Cats don't have to work very hard to be cats, it comes pretty naturally to them. But for us as human beings, we actually have to work very hard to be human. And one of those human skills that we need to practice is how to have uncomfortable conversations. Being uncomfortable is part of being human. And sometimes discomfort is caused by something we have with another person, whether professionally or personally. There is a tension that causes discomfort. Now, there are many ways to respond to that discomfort. We can run away from it. That is an option. Avoidance is always an option. I don't think it's the best option, because then it just perpetuates the discomfort or breaks relationships. The better way to deal with it is to lean into the tension. Now, there are also multiple ways to lean into tension. If you want to have a confrontation with someone, if you want to lean into that tension and have an uncomfortable conversation, too often when we don't have the skill set, it gets worse.
Yeah.
And it explodes and becomes an argument, and sometimes also ends in a destroyed relationship. So the skill of having an uncomfortable conversation is essential. This is how I do them. In fact, I just had one recently with a friend, and it went like this. I need to have an uncomfortable conversation with you. By stating what's about to happen, it lets the person take a deep breath and know what's about to happen is leaning into tension. It also lets them be prepared and be a little less defensive. If you don't trust your skills on how to have an uncomfortable conversation, then say something like this. I need to have an uncomfortable conversation with you. I'm afraid of having this conversation because I'm afraid that I'll say the wrong thing or it'll come out the wrong way and make things worse. So please be patient with me as I try to fumble through this and get out what I need to tell you. But it's more important to me that I have this conversation with you and try and address this situation than avoid it, because this relationship matters to me and I want to go through this with you. Can we have that conversation? And I always do that. I always ask permission. Can we have that conversation? Can I have this conversation with you now? Because they may not be in the mindset for it. They may say, yes, I want to have this conversation, but can we have it in an hour, right? So as opposed to being sprung on them. So I have to have an uncomfortable conversation with you. Can I have it now? Yes. Okay. Now you want to engage in something called FBI. It's just a mnemonic. You can do it in any order, but you have to have all three: your feelings, the behavior that made you feel that way, and the potential impact if the behavior doesn't change. Be as specific as you can.
That's great.
Feelings. Do better than happy, sad, angry. I'm
Yeah.
really frustrated, or I was put on edge, or I'm feeling distant from you, or I'm uncomfortable because. Then label the behavior that they did that made you feel that way. And again, be really, really specific. Avoid things like you always ... because they'll tell you the one time that they didn't, and now you're back there. Pick the most egregious or the most recent one and talk about that situation and how whatever they did made you feel a certain way, and your fear that if that continues, or if it's not goes unaddressed, that something will happen. Maybe, there'll always be tension between us and the relationship will break. And that's exactly what I did with my friend. It's a relatively new friend. Something happened that made it uncomfortable. I said, I need to have an uncomfortable conversation with you. Just fumble through this with me. I don't want to, but this relationship matters to me. And so I want to have this conversation. I addressed what the situation was. And then I said, my fear is that if you and I don't lean into this now, that this little friendship, this sprouting of a friendship that we're having will get destroyed, and I would actually rather see it grow. And we had a very uncomfortable conversation, and it turned out to be fantastic because we ended up opening up to each other and revealing various insecurities and fears that were both triggered by each other. And it was just fantastic. And the relationship is even better now than it was before. So please, please, please practice and learn the skill of having uncomfortable conversations. And the way you're going to practice them is by actually having them.
Love it.
That's amazing advice right there.
Love it.
All right. So now that you've heard what he's had to say, well, how do you think that influenced what maybe your thoughts you were having beforehand?
Oh gosh, I love how he just starts it. I think for me, the hardest part is starting the conversation. I know I need to have it. I'm the type of person who runs away from conflict. I'd rather not have it. So saying like, I need to have an uncomfortable conversation with you. This relationship means so much to me, and I'm so scared to even have this conversation because of how much it means to me, that I could say something that, like, makes it go away. But like it's so important to me that if we don't, like I feel like not having the conversation will also just make it worse. And I would
Definitely.
don't want to make it worse. Like I want us to get closer. I want us to be better in our relationship with each other. So is it okay if I fumble through this? Would you be okay if fumbling through it with me? Would now be an okay to have this uncomfortable conversation and then see where it goes? I just said all that off the rip because I'm literally practicing. Like,
No, no,
what
you want
to
to
say.
take it in. The
Yeah.
thing that was interesting to me, and that last part that you just recited, which is I'm often thinking like, oh, because I do want to have those conversations, that's the only part of the skill I needed to have, that desire to have it. But it's funny, even just in having to, even in asking someone permission, that little, adding that little, well, not little part, so just that part of it, it's where it helps me understand there are levels to this,
Mm,
because I feel like I'm a bull in a china shop. Like, oh, I want to have the conversation, but if the other person isn't receptive, it's not a great time. But I think I'm helping everything because I'm, like forcefully going, oh, but we should talk about this right now, when I'm not being considerate of the other fact the person may not want to,
mhm,
and so it's helpful to hear things like that, to recognize that there obviously we can always be learning new ways, or different things that we could be adding and implementing into our skill sets, because that's a big part of it right there, asking permission.
yeah, right, because
Yeah. Oh,
maybe they
and
want you to.
the vulnerable, being a little bit more vulnerable. Sorry to cut you off,
Yeah,
but being a little bit more vulnerable about my fear in having it, because although I'm like, oh, let's have it, I definitely am still sometimes apprehensive about whatever this conversation is that I'm gonna have to have. But I'm trying to put on like a brave face and not be open about that, and maybe that would allow somebody to be more receptive as well. So just things that
100%.
you could be, yeah, things to be just adding into things. I really enjoy this, and I don't know about you guys, but I don't. I feel like Simon could say anything to me, and I'd probably just like not like. How could we have a difficult conversation? You're so great. Maybe it's his voice or his demeanor. Like, it's interesting. Like, even when you've ever seen him like raise his voice or get like excited, it doesn't feel aggressive to me. Maybe just because I've been listening to him
Mhm.
talk for so long. He has a great skill set, though. He's great at what he
Yeah,
does.
I love this. I'm actually gonna bring this to my students. I think my students, could really
Oh, that's
learn from
great.
this as
Yeah,
well.
yeah,
Definitely gonna use it in my own relationships. This was great. I'm so glad you guys asked this question. This was awesome. Please, we wanna
absolutely.
hear from you. Put in the comments, like, if you feel like this helped you. Did it help you? Do you still feel lost? Do you want more?
No,
Um,
say
how
that.
many of you are gonna, like, use this, right, in the very near future? Just that we'd love to know all of those things. And keep
Absolutely.
the questions coming. But that concludes our Monday rundown for today. So glad that you guys all came to chop it up with us. And
Absolutely.
until next time, as always, remember you deserve the good life. Say
Say
that.
that. We'll see you guys. Check out Wednesday. Peace.